And I'm impressed that all of you guys are awake and here. So hi, this panel is Secrets to Successful Travel. I'm Kyell Gold. I have flown a lot, traveled a lot in the past decade, but not nearly as much as this guy.
Yeah, I'm Amoore. I travel basically all over the world playing piano, as some of you know. Sometimes as a fox, I bring my fursuit with me, and I do things that a fox would do when they're at piano.
So I figured this would be a fun panel to just talk about. I think the idea came because I was on a flight and we had some delay or something, and I thought, oh, I know how to deal with this. And I thought, if you only fly once or twice a year and you're not used to the airlines and how things change and all of that, then it might be useful to have people who have experienced all this stuff kind of talk you through it for an hour, answer questions, things like that. So I figured we'd talk about some of our travel experiences and how maybe experiences helped us in situations where we might have freaked out otherwise, and then just take some questions for a bit.
Absolutely, yeah. I think for me, when it comes to travel, if my flight is ever delayed or cancelled, like it sounds like cliche, but the #1 thing is to actually just stay calm and know that the airline, like 9 times out of 10, like know it's happened and they're already working on trying to fix it for you. Like for example, like there was a flight. I think I was in O'Hare, like here. And we just missed it, and then instantly, like the United app was saying, "All right, here's your new flight. Go to this gate, and we're gonna rewrite you probably from Denver this time to get to like San Francisco or whatever. But that's at least you're gonna get there." It's just
So kind of even a step back from that, I know it's a pain, especially when you're traveling on multiple airlines or multiple hotel chains or whatever, but if you have the apps and you register with them, that is now the main way that they will communicate with you. So having all of that makes it much easier for them to update you on plans, because I know a couple times I've had flights that were delayed and American just booked me on a new flight because I needed a different flight to make my connection. And this was when they were merging with US Air, and so they still weren't completely integrated, and I didn't have a US Airways app. So I would call them and say, hey, I'm worried about this flight because it's delayed, and they would say, oh, well, you're already on a different flight, but do you want to get back on that one? But if I had the app, they would just tell me.
Yeah, it's actually pretty cool. Like you can literally do everything with the app now. Like you can figure out where your bags are, so you can actually, or you can just physically use it as your boarding pass as well, which is kind of sweet. Just to make sure your phone's charged. I've had that problem once or twice.
Do they have chargers at the gates now?
They do, yeah. Oh yeah, most major airports, like you can plug your phone in. I mean, you've probably seen them just like kicking around everywhere.
But yeah, I think the stay calm is like the most important advice. So actually, on my way out here, I flew out of SFO, which anybody who's familiar with the Bay Area knows is a dicey proposition. But we had weather delays. And so we got on the plane and were ready to go, and then we're told we had another 25 minutes until there was a window for us to take off. And that 25 minutes cost a bunch of us our connections, because we were flying into Dallas, we were getting a late flight out, like 8:30-ish flights out, and those were the last flights of the evening. And so this like half-hour delay was the difference between landing at 8 o'clock when we could have run to a gate and they might have held it for a couple minutes, or landing as the plane was taking off. But they handled it very well on the plane. They helped out a lot. They said, while we're waiting, you guys can use your phones. Here's the number to rebook. You can call them. The flight attendants do not have any other information and cannot help you. But knowing kind of the process when there's going to be a delay, building in that buffer, and just kind of calling calmly and saying, hey, this is my situation, what can you guys do to help? And again, like, the only option for me was to fly out of Dallas the next morning. Like, I was going to be in Dallas overnight. There's no point in getting angry at the agent about that. There's no point in yelling. If you really, really have an urgent need for an alternate solution, just try to convey that calmly. Like, you know, you're saying, I really, really need to be in Chicago tonight because such and such.
Like a family emergency or any
Right.
kind of situation where you have to get to where you're going really quick. I know that United do it. They have like the standby option thing too. If you want to like take like a different route, like they can easily like put you on like another flight straight away if there's like spare seats. Depending on your status level with the airline, that can really work in your favor, or it could be like a complete gamble. It can be a lottery, because if you wait there and there's like another person waiting to stand by and he's got like a higher status than you, then he's gonna take that seat before you do. So
Right.
When that happened to me, we missed our flight, and then I was just going to go buy a hotel. And then I was checking out to find out where I should go. The guy said, well, that airline should compute that hotel because we had to stay an extra night. And I said, really? And so you have to ask.
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes, because I had the app and all that stuff. Sometimes.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I know, when I was doing that, I did my rebooking on the phone on the flight, and then he passed me off to their hotel partner, and she was trying to book me with a hotel, and I said, you know, just to be clear, you know, don't be afraid to ask is a great thing, but also don't act entitled
I was
for it.
Totally,
And
I'm prepared for that.
right, because there's all these policies around it. If it's something like, if it's a mechanical failure on the plane, or if it's something where the crew didn't show up in time, or the crew had timed out and they needed to get new crew there,
then it's 100% their responsibility, and they have
Right.
to give you a hotel. If it's weather related, then they don't technically have an obligation to give you a hotel, which is why it's important to go up. Yeah, you go up. But if you ask nicely, then 9 times out of 10 they probably will, like, at least give you vouchers or like something for the hotel to cover your stay there.
or at the very least, you might say, like, do you have a meal voucher just so I can get dinner in the airport before I go to the hotel? And you might get that. But I was going to say, like, with regards to that also, so the woman was giving me these hotel options around DFW, and she's like, well, there's this one which is $300 for a night, there's this one which is $299, there's this one which is $250. And I know, and again, like, I'm a Hilton member, so I have the Hilton app, and so I know that I can find Hilton properties in the Dallas area that are around $100 a night, and it's not going to be more than a $30 Lyft ride there and back. So if you're prepared for that kind of option as well, Lyft has made it so much easier than, you know, because you never know how much a taxi ride is going to cost, but you know approximately how much a ride share is going, or online ride is going to be. So
there's a lot of countries now that are using Uber and Lyft. So it's very universal. Like, even if you're going to like a country that speaks like a foreign language, like, you're still able to go on your app and say, Uber, I want you to drop me here. And even if your Uber driver doesn't speak a word of English, like, he still knows where to go. So it's fine.
And the other thing you can do with Uber and Lyft, which I did, is you can schedule them. And so I was on, they booked me on a 7:30 a.m. flight out of Dallas, so which meant I had to be at the airport at 6 something, and then talking to the Lyft driver on the way out, I said, hey, how much time should I allow to get back to the airport? And, you know, talking to regional people who are familiar with the airport and just asking for information is also really helpful. And he said, well, traffic's not going to be bad, but Dallas is Wednesday morning, like, security lines are really, really bad in Dallas Wednesday mornings, so you should probably allow more time. And I said, well, I'm TSA pre-check, so how would that help? And he's like, that's great, but there's only certain gates that take them. So then I went and looked up on the website, like, which gates take TSA pre-check, and then they said, oh, this terminal tends to get really crowded, so if you're going out of that terminal, go to this other one and you can take a Skylink train to it. So, you know, there's a lot of little things that you can do, and it's kind of, I find it kind of neat when I'm like, there's this problem and I can find this way around it, as opposed to being annoyed that I have to go to this terminal. Why can't I just do this?
Have you been to Denver? You've been to Denver International,
yeah.
Before, right? So
Denver's so
yeah.
weird.
When you take the train, like at least when I was there, like as the doors were closing and it was taking me to the main terminal, like the most stereotypical like Woody from Toy Story cowboy accent came on, and I was like, "We're taking you to the terminal. Hold on to your hats." And it just left. And it did. Like as soon as it left, like a jerk, and everyone kind of like almost fell over.
Yeah.
Sorry. One thing to note for standby, you can, if you aren't in a rush, the opposite end of that, you can go to the front desk and basically say, not in a rush. If you need somebody to volunteer standby, you can probably get that and get some sort of voucher for the future.
Yeah.
So it kind of works both ways. If you've got time to kill.
Yeah. That's the thing. I don't think people realize half the time when like something goes wrong, the amount of options they do actually have, and the amount of potential kind of like benefits they could receive from it. Even if it does sound terrible, it's like, oh no, my flight was delayed or cancelled. Like the airline will definitely give you stuff. I mean, I remember when there was a gig we were doing recently, and I believe it was when Pepper was heading to Seattle. They wouldn't let him take his guitar on board because, you know, United and guitars just they don't mix very well. But Pepper, like, he was like, I need this guitar. It's here. I was already told I can put it in. So he would not get on the plane, but they put him on the next one, and they gave him, I think, 15,000 miles or something, which is like an entire domestic flight in the US from like anywhere like in continental US.
That's cool. You had a.
Yeah, I went to elaborate on the flight delays, and I don't know so much about the US, but if you have a flight that services Europe, then there's a whole compensation scheme around that. And I've had it where I've had delays of 26 hours to 10 hours, and there's actually set prices in euros that you get. So a 4-hour plus delay on a long-haul flight that services Europe, you can get 600 euros.
Yeah.
Compensation.
Yeah, but
honestly, yeah, bucket flight is like 5 times the price.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, like, see, when I've been booking my flights over to the US from the UK, I've seen that message every time. If you're flying from the European Union, well, at least in the moment we're in the European Union. But yeah, like we had like special compensation for stuff like that as well. It was like I don't think it mattered like what the reason was. If you were denied boarding for whatever reason, like you're entitled to like.
Unless it's extraordinary circumstances, weather. But Emirates tried. They had to service maintenance on their plane, and they were trying to claim that as within their rights to not pay me any compensation. So I basically had to go on. It's the CCI or something, the Civil Aviation. I don't know.
Yeah.
Authority, CAA, the Civil Aviation Authority, and they have case studies because there's no legal definition of what an extraordinary circumstance is. But there's so many cases that you can quote in the email the case studies that says like maintenance is your responsibility. It's not an extraordinary circumstance, therefore you owe me money.
Yep.
And I just had to send them one email, and they basically said that yeah, we do.
Emirates can freaking afford it as well.
Yeah,
My God.
they're really bad. They've been flagged up on not paying people. But you have 3 years to. So if you're thinking now, wait, I would delay this hours. If it was within 3 years, you can still claim it. And I think a short haul flight, 1 6-hour flight, was euros. So it's worth looking into because yeah, they can afford it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Have you seen their like business and first class on those planes? Oh my gosh.
And some of them will try to give you air miles, but it's only valid for like a year. So
Yeah, it expires. Yeah.
The thing that amazed me was when we were in France taking the trains. They hold their trains to such a high standard that if your train journey is delayed, you can get a full refund for your ticket. So our train was like 20 minutes, half hour late, and then we had another delay somewhere along the way. And when we got in, there were like 20 agents standing along the platform holding out the refund vouchers for you to mail in and get a refund for your ticket.
It's amazing they actually bother though, because with flights they say ask about your rights, but that's it. So you don't even know if it's worth asking. The only reason I did is because I ran into another frequent traveller who said, oh, by the way, you get 600 euros in that.
Yeah, I think another one another thing that really helps, and we kind of touched on this a bunch, is just talking to people and listening to other people. And don't, if you're kind of freaking out about your situation, like, talk to the person in the next seat. So again, when I was making the rebooking things on this flight to Dallas, there was only one other person in the row, and she had told me at the beginning of the flight, like I haven't slept in like 48 hours, I'm just trying to get home, I'm whatever. And then when they were announcing these delays, she kind of like was checking things and kept leaning over, and she was like, I'm really tired and I know I'm not handling this well, but I'm not, and you seem really organized, so like, can you just like talk me through some of this? And so I talked with her a little bit, and I was like, here's what's going on, and she's like, I don't see my flight on the connecting gates, and I was like, mine's not there either, and that's either because they rebooked me or because the flight, they know we're not going to make it. And then she checked her app, and they had already rebooked her on a flight, but it was the next morning, and I'm lucky enough to have friends in Dallas, and so I texted them and was like, hey, can I sleep on your couch for a night? And I'll take you out to dinner. And she was like, I don't know, I'm probably just going to sleep in the airport, but because, you know, who wants to pay $300 for a hotel room? But if you talk to other people, they can give you tips like, hey, you might be owed 600 euros, or, you know, here's what's going on. And it's very easy when you get into this to kind of turn inward and like freak out over your situation. But most people, including the staff, if you're just very calm and polite to the staff, or you can just say like, I'm really sorry, I'm really stressed about this, and like, is there anything that you can do to help, as opposed to yelling at them because you're stressed. They're usually very happy to help.
Because they're just as stressed as you are.
Yeah.
When that stuff happens, like, that's definitely not what they want either.
Especially when you get people, they're getting people coming up to them who are causing additional stress. When they get somebody who isn't, they're more apt to actually want to try.
They're more inclined to help people that aren't going to give them a hard time. Like,
I've had that happen where I was right behind somebody who was just like yelling at the person and being like, you need to give me this, you need to do this, you need to give me this, and they were like, I'm sorry, we can't do anything, and he like stormed away, and I was like, hi, I'm really sorry about that guy, I'm kind of in the same boat, and they were like, hang on, let me see what we can do. So it really, like, a smile and a kind word goes such a long way.
that's honestly when like your frequent flyer stats could mean nothing. Like if you're like freaking the highest possible level and you're still being like a horrible person, it's not going to get you anywhere. Like you could be the lowest, you could be the lowest stats, and if you're nice, they're more going to want to help you than the other, because they work for the company. They don't own it. They're not on the board. They're not obligated to.
Also, I'll tell you, I don't know if this is a thing that you can like utilize as a secret, but like one of the things that kept me flying American for many years was we were, I forget why I was in a separate seat from my husband, but we were like across an aisle from each other or something, and I was in one seat, and it's these like narrow economy seats and so on, and the person in the other seat, it was like a two-person aisle, was very large, and clearly they were not comfortable in their seat, and they were kind of intruding on my space. And I was like, all right, well, this is the flight. It's not a super long flight. And the flight attendant came up to me as we were going and was like, sir, your first class upgrade came through. I'm here to take you to first class. And for a second, I was just like, I didn't, oh. Okay, thank you so much. And I got a first class seat for that flight. So
the three sweetest words I ever get from United in my email inbox is elite upgrade notification. It's like, okay, it's gonna be free booze.
And on that topic, like, join all the frequent flyer programs, join all the hotel rewards programs. Just like, even if you're like, I don't know if I'll ever stay in this hotel chain again, maybe you will. But just being a member of the program, you'll accumulate points. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything except you getting your name on a list for promotional marketing stuff.
Yeah,
But
and so many airlines, like they're part like a larger like group of airlines. For example, United is Star Alliance, or I think Americans is that's
One World,
One
yeah.
World, and Delta is Sky Team. I think that's
Wow.
one KLM. I think.
Yeah.
own
I know it's Delta and KLM. I don't know what the thing is called, but yeah.
Yeah.
You can at least accumulate points and miles, and if you're a rewards member, you have the chance to do that, as opposed to if you're flying a bunch of miles and staying in hotels, and then 5 years down the road you're like, oh, I've stayed in your hotel a bunch of times.
When it comes to traveling, I was at one point trying to look up flights for Australia, and it's like, there's got to be a cheaper way to fly. And then I came across a site called Momondo. Oh my god, it saved me a boat ton of money.
What's it called?
Momondo, M-O-M-O-N-D-O. It's like my #1 flight secret. It took a trip from Europe from $2,000 to $600.
Wow.
Yeah, to $600 in flights. And then that's how I was able to afford Eurofirst.
Can you remember what airlines they were?
I went from, it's a search engine. It searches the cheapest flights
Yep.
for you. And you don't even have to search for them. It goes, you don't even have to search for which one's the price. You can put it in order, and it'll show up a calendar of the cheapest days to fly
Yep.
as well. And you can work your trip around that. I went on $600 from New York to London, London to Krakow, Krakow to Oslo, and then Oslo to London back home.
I mean, that's one hell of a way to get the miles.
That's great.
Yeah, I know, right?
Sure.
And I took Ryanair, Iceland Air, again Ryanair, and then I took Norwegian, and yeah, that's about it. And I still had 50, and my flight from Krakow to Berlin and then back to Krakow, which was the added detour, cost me like $100 total.
Wow. What were your baggage rules like? Were you able to take like one bag, two?
Basically, I was allowed a carry-on and a personal bag.
Okay.
So I just had to pay for my bigger bag.
A lot of times, I think this was more common in European flights and is becoming more common in the US, where they do, if you can travel with less baggage, your tickets can be much cheaper.
Yep.
Yeah. Like currently, I got a ticket from Amanda on Spirit Air. It's costing me like 200 something round trip.
Yeah. Spirit Air is great if you don't have a lot of luggage
Yeah.
and can tune out people yelling at you.
Yeah.
Yes.
I got twitchy about them because I got a survey and asked, would you be willing to actually, if you got a cheaper flight, would you be willing to pay to go to the bathroom? And it's like, no, I'm not going that route.
Yeah, I took a Spirit Airlines flight because it was an overnight and I could fit everything into one carry-on bag, and so it was like $60 round trip from Dallas to New Orleans or something. But even then they were like, well, you can't pick your seat. We pick your seat for you. And on one of the flights, I don't remember which one, on both of them people asked, can we change seats? Because they had people like crammed in 3 to a row and then a whole bunch of empty rows behind them. And people were like, can we change seats? And the flight attendants were like, no, you have to sit this way because of the weight distribution of the plane. And we were like, that's not true. And so I think I actually changed seats right in front of them and they didn't say anything. But mostly they say, wait till we take off and then you can go wherever you want.
Right, yeah.
But I think they intentionally like cram people into rows if they didn't pay the extra to pick their own seats.
It's the Walmart of the airline industry.
Spirit Airlines is also the only airline I've ever heard yelling at people in a gate, like to get on a plane. That said, they're cheap.
Yep.
We're flying Frontier this Christmas.
Yeah.
Frontier is also moving to that model of like, your flight is super cheap. If you want any of these extra amenities like drinks or picking your seat or having a bag, then
I mean, if you need to get somewhere fast and cheap and you don't have to take stuff with you, then it's ideal.
yeah.
What's the best way to travel with?
Fursuit
head?
Yes, thank you.
I mean, so I've done it like both ways. I've had my fursuit head in a case, but the case was a harder case, so it had and it was surrounded by the fursuit body as well, so it was very much enclosed. I've never personally had any issues with that, but just I always feel more comfortable having the head in a carry-on bag.
Yeah, but
So-
it doesn't fit, oh, maybe it can fit above.
It can do, yeah. It can do, and a lot of the fursuit heads, they can actually like close a little bit, like the one I have, like I can fold the ears down and I can squeeze it in slightly, and I can put them in like a small kind of like duffel bag, and then take it through like security like that. And it's always interesting when TSA
tell them about the note you put in your bag with the costume.
Oh yeah, so when
I thought that was great. I never thought of it.
Yeah. So basically, I have just a small sheet of paper in my fursuit like case, basically explaining to the TSA officer just what it is, because there's always the chance that when you've checked your luggage in, TSA will give it like an additional inspection. Like a lot of the times it's just random, or they might see something that kind of looks suspicious to them. It could be something just like a laptop adapter or something. There's something that looks like a kind of bomb or whatever.
The tail, I've run across this when I don't with my tail.
Yep.
Never gets checked.
Yep, and you get really odd looking devices like the raised up fan where you put your head on and stuff like that. That always kind of like freaks them out. So they'll open it and they'll start ruffling through. And basically on that sheet of paper is me introducing like who the character is. Like, hey, I'm Fox. I'm a mascot costume. This is what I do, this is where things are, please put me in the correct position. Thanks so very much. Yours faithfully, Fox. And the amount of times I've opened that up and the TSA will like deliberately like just put their little inspection leaflet right on top of that little note that I left there. I think they actually appreciate it when you do that, because obviously when you're in there looking in the scanners of all the bags going through, when you see something like a fursuit, you're gonna like go, you don't see that on every flight. Bring it over here.
I think last year or the year before, when I was flying out of O'Hare, we had a bunch of crates, and so I was checking our bags, and someone was like pulled it up and was like, "Oh yeah, what's with all the costumes?" So yeah, they notice. They're getting to know, especially when you have 10,000 people coming into town for a convention. The people at the airport are going to notice.
A couple of years ago, me and a bunch of friends, we flew into Chicago and we were waiting at the border. They were checking our passports and stuff. And Border Patrol were just like, furry fandoms? Like, yep, go. There's a whole bunch of us just going through, and he was just like, oh, this is easy.
That's awesome. Yeah.
There's no problem with the size of the camera. For us tall people like that, for some pilots, you can pull up the seat for extra space where it's not so crowded. But that's where longer legs, it makes it more cramped. Out that way, I feel muscle cramps being bunched up so tightly.
Yeah.
Maybe JetBlue sometimes they usually have a no first class section to it, and they usually have much more room for it.
Yeah.
It's hard to get the early airlines give you that much. Or they give you that extra little seat belt when the Canadiers can't click into it like that.
Yeah, I know another thing a lot of the airlines are moving towards. I think Virgin Atlantic was one of the first ones to do this. Maybe JetBlue also, but American has started doing it. I think some of the others, where they have a kind of like economy plus.
Yeah,
I think American calls it main cabin, or like
United call it economy plus.
Yeah, and where it's economy, but you have a little more leg room, a little more towards the front of the plane, and you pay a little bit of a premium for those seats. But if it's a case where it makes you more comfortable for a 3 or 4 hour flight, then maybe it's worth it.
Yeah, and also something like that. One time I came from Boston, I tried to get to Amsterdam one time, but I got there, my seat was always given a wait time, so they gave me a relay to from the flight from Washington D.C. to Pittsburgh. Unfortunately, they got canceled my flight about 10 times before I even got. It was midnight before I got to Pittsburgh.
Oh no.
Well,
That's tough.
That's why I took the train up that way. But then in fact still got bugs in it. When they combined the 2 trains from the Lakeshore Limited at Albany, after I left, they botched up. They forgot to attach the New York set behind the train, and almost left without it.
Oh wow. On the subject of tall people as well, obviously traveling around in Pepper is always fun. United have a smaller airline company called DBA United Express, and that's basically where they have their Bombardier, like Embraer Air, like really tiny, like 20-seater
jumpers.
Yeah, puddle jumpers. And I mean, honestly, like if I was flying from like Chicago to Detroit, like we would probably take those flights like 9 times out of 10. But yeah, they're very low. Like even I have to duck down when I go onto those planes.
They're so cramped.
Yeah, and if you have like larger luggage, like for carry-on, like you're totally screwed because like those overheads are like
Yeah.
that. Like it's so tiny.
You mentioned about how the stewards and stewardesses are paying attention to help you, that kind of thing. When you are actually going on board, I've talked with them on this, they pay attention to who's happy, who's outgoing, that kind of thing. So saying hi to them when you get on board, they notice that. Just for reasons of, okay, if they need to get somebody involved and they see that you're at least personable, they may ask you to do something or you change seats with somebody else. So it kind of behooves you to be friendly even when you're getting on board, even if you're having a crappy day.
Yeah, and then you can. It's a little bit of an effort, but I think it's worth doing. Even if you're like, I'm so tired at 6 in the morning and I'm not supposed to be on this flight. I was supposed to be there yesterday. Just to be like, like, hi, good morning. And be like, hi, it's really early. I'm sorry. I'm looking forward to this flight. And they're like, yeah, it is, because it's early for them too, of course. Yeah, that's absolutely just be friendly. Everybody's in the same boat or plane or train or whatever.
Just curiously, how many people here have actually flown outside like the continental US?
Oh, nice. That's pretty cool.
So where did you guys go then? Did you go to like the UK, Europe, or Japan?
Poland.
Poland. That's awesome.
Germany.
And Germany.
All over.
Yeah, I used to race cars.
Oh yeah, you have.
Yeah, you know.
You've been more places than me.
I have both traveled internationally for my job and I've been a commercial pilot, so I've been both.
Yep.
I recommend getting a frequent travel ID, is it called, or whatever? Basically,
yeah.
Nexus.
Known traveler ID, is what American calls it.
Global entry is what UK citizens or anyone on the ESTA program can get for entering the US, and it's really silly because when I'm traveling back with Dixie or like another American who does not have global entry, like I will get through the border quicker than the US citizens will, because it's just how the border works here.
When I came back from Eurofurence last year, I was traveling with Buck, and he had just a piece of carry-on luggage and nothing else. I had checked bags. I had a piece of reindeer sausage from Finland that was not allowed into the country, and so I had to stop at the agricultural station and have him explain to me why the reindeer sausage was not allowed in the country. But I also had global entry, so I got through and waited 15-20 minutes for him to get through the border to come in. Global entry is, right now, well, when I got it, it was $100 for 5 years. That works out to $20 a year, and it gets you TSA pre-check on domestic flights, which lets you get past the security lines without having to disassemble your bags, which is super nice.
One of the sweetest things about frequent traveling is not having to take your laptop out of your bag.
Yeah, oh my god.
It's so annoying.
One tip on this, if you get the Nexus, it's $20 and includes TSA pre and global entry. It's 10 years. The only problem is, Nexus, you have to go to a specific location to get that. So I had to drive from Minneapolis up to War Road, which was like a 7-hour drive up there. But usually, yeah, it's just one time.
When we got global entry, the wait, you have to have an in-person interview with them where they basically, I think they already have your fingerprints. Basically, the in-person interview was them explaining to you how to use global entry, but you still have to do it. But the wait in San Francisco was 6 months. So I had a friend who got it, who drove down to San Diego to the Mexican border, because there is a station at the border crossing that didn't have a wait time. What worked for us was we were going to Furry Fiesta in Dallas, and the Dallas office had no wait time. So we scheduled our interviews for the Monday afternoon after Fiesta before our flights back, went to Dallas airport early, had our interviews, got home.
So my global entry was, I flew into Orlando, because when you get global entry, like you have to get like an interview with the border patrol officer. They'll check your passport and make sure you're not like a terrorist and all that kind of stuff. And when I was going for my interview, I noticed there was a bunch of like the Star Trek model ships like on his desk. So I'm thinking, okay, this guy's a nerd. And I see the Voyager one, and I flash back to like a few years ago when we did the Dreamcatcher. Like if anyone follows like Star Trek Voyager, if you know Tuvok, Tim Russ, he actually narrated like the start of my album and that. So I just kind of told him that. And then he didn't ask me any more questions, he was just asking me, like, hey, what was he like? And I was like showing the picture, I got like a selfie with him, and he's like, oh, that's super, super cool. And he was basically like, so are you going to behave yourself? I was like, yeah, okay. But yeah, but they'll go through your passport, they'll check which other countries you've been to. It was actually quite a meticulous process. Like I had to put down every single country I've been to.
Yeah.
And obviously at the very top of his list I saw Russia. So I was like, oh, he's going to talk to me about that, isn't he? And I was like, no, I didn't. Like, I've been to Russia twice, and he didn't care.
They ask me very odd questions. Stuff like, why do you want to go to Canada? I like camping. And
for the maple syrup.
yeah.
Yeah.
But also, when you get that, be sure to go into the various airline settings because you have to enter that trusted traveler number in there. Otherwise, when you check in, you won't get that TSA
pre-check. Yeah.
The only hiccup that I had with that was when we were flying to Europe, because I booked a British Airways flight through an American Airlines app, and my ticket was American Airlines code share, and I was flying out of an American airport, but I did not get pre-check on my ticket because British Airways doesn't have I think they were trying to explain to me that, well, because it's an international flight and the airline doesn't support blah, blah, blah. But I think it's just as dumb as they don't have a space on their form for that. Because I was looking through all the things, like there's no reason I shouldn't be able to get my TSA pre-check for my global entry on an American airport on an American flight. And it was when I looked at, but the ticket was issued through British Airways, and they don't have that thing in there because, so.
I just remembered something really funny, and again, it was involving Pepper. So you know how Pepper is very, very tall.
Yes, more Pepper stories.
So, like Pepper got global entry recently as well, and we were coming into Chicago. And when you go to the machine, you know how they've got like the little camera where they have to take like a picture of you, and it scrolls like up and down.
Huh.
Pepper is so tall that the camera couldn't get quite his face in front. So it did this, like the face was like that. It just got to his nose, and then. The global entry thing put a big huge cross for it saying, nah, it's not you, so he had to take it to one of the officers, and oh my gosh, he stood there laughing for like half an hour. So like he went and got a bag and he had to kneel down slightly and he got a picture. It's like, come on guys.
That's awesome. Did he like use that picture on social media or something? It looks like something I might.
Something he would probably post.
Yeah.
Something he so shouldn't post.
That's great.
What are your favorite things to do when you have like a layover, but you don't want to stay in the airport?
Ooh. Should I go first?
Yeah.
So basically when we were coming back from Japan, we intentionally took a 12-hour layover in Hawaii, Honolulu, so we could go around and check out stuff. So we got out of the plane. We were very, very exhausted. Like we hadn't slept for like at least 25 hours or something. And we were going around Pearl Harbor like zombies and going downtown, and we went to this like really expensive like hotel, and a pina colada was like $25 or something, but we just wanted to have a pina colada in the beach in Hawaii. And that was a good layover. After that we got on the plane and we were back, and then we had like another 5-hour, 6-hour drive from LA to Phoenix as well. We had like 30 hours constant not sleeping, so by the time we got there we slept for like 12 hours.
If we can, it depends on what's around. The worst layover that I ever had was an hour in Trenton, whose main tourist feature is a big bridge with the slogan on it, "Trenton makes, the world takes," which apparently was their slogan from back when they were an industrial city. But yeah, I don't recommend an hour in Trenton. 5 minutes if you can manage it. But usually I like to go around downtowns, depending on how close the airport is and how much there is to do. Look up restaurants or anything you can do quickly. We did a similar thing on our way back from Australia, where we were flying the Fiji airline, and so we took a red-eye from Melbourne to Fiji, got in at like 7 in the morning, and then our flight from Fiji to LA was 7 in the evening. So we had 12 hours to drive around Fiji, which was really cool, except that in Fiji they drive on the left-hand side of the road, which I'm not used to. And we picked up our rental car before sunrise, so I'm trying to figure out if the pedals are the same because I'm on a weird side of the car, and we're going on these roads, and like most of Fiji is still kind of third world infrastructure. So I'm like trying to navigate on the left-hand side of the road, and if I drift over like 3 inches because I'm freaking out that all these other cars are on the wrong side, I hit the jagged edge of the road, and my husband is trying to like nap in the front seat, and I keep waking him up, and he was like, "Stop doing that!" But Fiji was gorgeous, and we like hiked around a bunch, and then found one of the beach resort areas, and went back to the airport, and it was super cool.
I often wondered about that, if it was a connection or not. When I saw on Swarm that you went to Fiji, I didn't know if it was like just a random, let's go to Fiji.
Well,
it's like, sorry kids, we're not going to Disney, we're going to Fiji.
We were taking whatever it's like, I forget, it's not called Fiji Air anymore, but yeah, it was, and we were like, okay, well, we'll do that. That was part of our 44-hour day.
One time it was hilarious because I didn't know if I was in a country in and of itself or a part of a larger country. So I literally went up to this TSA woman, or rather passport checker person, and I was like, yeah, I'm just here for layover, but could you tell me where in the world I am? She looked at me, she gave me the strangest look. She was like, look, I'm so tired, I just want to get a salad somewhere. And she was just like, you're in Holland. I was like, okay, thank you.
Interestingly enough, and this is something we discovered recently as well, that genuinely, if you're flying into Europe, connecting in Amsterdam is actually considerably cheaper than a lot of places. So if you are traveling in Europe, like staying in Amsterdam for a couple of days is totally worth it.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't connect in Amsterdam though. I connect somewhere else.
Rotterdam? Utrecht?
No. What?
Utrecht?
No. God damn it. I can't remember where I connected, but
it's a small country. There's not that many cities.
No, it was another well-known city. What's the last city?
The Hague?
Huh?
The Hague? I only know that because that's where the World Court is, but...
like Dutch people don't really like that.
I think that's another good thing is, and I don't know if there's probably websites that have this listed, but there are airports that are cheaper to fly into than others. And there are sometimes, like, London is not one of those airports, but I happened to get a really good deal when I went to Eurofurence on a round trip to London that my friend from Dallas, and it was San Francisco to London, and it was like $500 round trip. And when my friend in Dallas was trying to get the same deal, his deal from Dallas to London was $1,000. So it was cheaper for him to buy a $250 flight to San Francisco and take my flight to London with me, which connected in Dallas on the way back, so he just didn't get on the last leg of his return flight and didn't get his return from San Francisco, but he still saved a couple $100.
Those flights from the west coast to Europe are kind of crazy as well, because they kind of go all the way up the curve, like towards the North Pole and like that.
Yeah.
Over Greenland and stuff.
We flew over Iceland for sure, yeah. They were a lot of fun.
There's 4 airports around London, Gatwick, Heathrow, Stansted. Obviously from the US, you're pretty much going to go to either Gatwick or
Heathrow,
which are more expensive. But if you're flying Europe, Stansted is actually very, very cheap because Ryanair serves it. However, it takes like an hour and a half to get there from London.
So like, I know this isn't travel stories, but so we flew to London and we landed at Heathrow, and we were actually going to Helsinki. So we had a connecting flight on Norwegian Air probably that was leaving out of Gatwick. And we had 2 hours, I want to say like 2 hours landing at 3:30 p.m. on a Monday when it also happened to be raining, and it took us, sorry, we had like 2.5 hours or something, but it took us 1 hour and 15 minutes to get through passport control. And then, so we had hired a car because we were like, well, we have 2 options. We can do a car service or we can do a bus. And we were both like, I don't know, the bus is cheaper, but I don't want to rely on it. So we had hired a car, and we ended up getting out half an hour later. So he was waiting in the garage for like half an hour for us. So he charged us just for the parking fees for that time, and then we were like, well, we have to get to Gatwick by this time, and he was like, well, we'll see. So we made it there with like an hour like before our flight.
It's one of my pet peeves actually. Like when you've done like a long flight and you've landed at the airport and you're taxiing towards like the terminal, but instead of going to like the actual gate itself, they freaking park, and then you have to get on like a bus, and then you have to like transport all the way over to the gate. You have to pile in with a bunch of people, and you have to wait for the entire plane to like deplane before like they can leave. It's like, oh, I just want to get to my bed.
Just to get to the gate.
Yeah.
Go to the gate.
And
like you get to the airport, you're just like, right, there's a chance I can make it. If that happens, you're like, okay.
Yeah, and I swear to God, the amount of times like we're about to fly, and like the United pilot comes on and says, hey everybody, we're leaving now. We've left early. We're gonna land half an hour early. By the time they land, they're like, oh, so it turns out there's still someone at our gate, so we're gonna have to sit here for like 40 minutes. So by the time you get there, there's still delays.
Yeah.
You can't win. Like you'd think they'd be able to freaking tell the airport, hey, we're going to be landing like half an hour early. Is there any free gates?
Can we just go to a different gate? Yeah, I think they have it so, like, everything is so
Clockwork.
tightly, clockwork, that you mess up one thing and it cascades around.
It's kind of like Eurofirms.
Snap.
I was actually reading how they come out of the gateway and turn at the right angle. That actually adds or removes minutes on there, and it all plays into it.
We have 41 seconds to start the engines. Half the time, that's why you see little marks when we pull back. We'll hold the APU and it's ready to start, and we start the engine. If anything is a little bit less, you'll be surprised how that cascades. Next thing you know, we're 13 seconds behind our slot to taxi into the main taxiway.
It's the equivalent of one person hitting a brake in traffic.
Right.
It goes.
Yep. But people don't understand. Most passengers don't get that. And they're like, oh,
Right.
Is it regulation to actually have to start the engines once you've actually backed off from the gate?
yeah, we have to be a certain distance from the ground
Okay.
crew, and then they give us the clear to start our engine. But trust me, as our pilots, usually I have my first officer. He's sitting on the starter. We're waiting. And we go, and we're good, and start. You know, but not all airplanes run the same. So sometimes, you know, or sometimes they have a goofy, you know, hot weather will make them start slower. The next thing you know, because just like traffic, you have your inner city road, you have an on-ramp, the on-ramp is long, but you gotta get on the runway, right? So you have the faster taxiway, or the slower taxiway by the gates and the runway. So if we don't get in our slot, you're gonna be slower on the faster taxiway. It's just like, well.
Yeah. We had people complaining on this delayed flight, like the woman next to me and other people were like, well, man, if we hadn't sat on the tarmac for 25 minutes, we could have all made our flights. And I was like, I don't think that's how that works. Like, the pilot didn't just like decide to hang out. Like, they don't. They can tell. They tell the control tower when they're ready, and control says, all right, here's where your slot is now because you weren't on time. Right. It was funny. Like when I told my boys this, they were like, why were you even on this plane? This was our pilot's last flight before retirement.
Oh, retirement.
And like his family was on board. Hashtag was like, I would have said, get me off this plane. He only has one flight left till retirement.
Did they give water spray?
No.
Oh,
well, not that I saw. But I was behind the family on the way out, and so they were talking about it, and basically they said that was what happened. Is he radioed that we were ready to go, and they were like, all right, you have to wait 25 minutes. Like, they don't know that until they're ready, because they can't. If you're not on time, you can't.
I've noticed as well that like some pilots will opt to like just have one engine running when they're taxiing. Is that just purely to save fuel?
Yeah, exactly. Because
is it just
depending on the aircraft, I flew 737s for Southwest, for example. The amount of fuel that I will burn for a 20-minute taxi to the runway would be equivalent to flying from, let's say, Columbus, Ohio to Chicago. We're burning 600 pounds.
Yeah.
600 pounds in one engine.
Yep.
If I run both, it's 1,200 pounds. And like you were saying earlier, being nice to the crew is a big thing because most people don't understand how these machines work. They don't understand that weight is a factor. We're carrying 90 tons of fuel, you know. Every person adds a lot of weight. And if the wind changes, all of a sudden I can't use that runway. I have to now go to the other side of the airport because I physically cannot take the aircraft off with just 10 knots of wind change. Because we're so heavy or something, you know, depending on the situation. And that's just,
Yeah.
you're just like,
So you guys are under a ton of stress anyway.
Yeah.
You don't need some passenger going, why are we 15 minutes late?
Yeah, and actually on the subject of the wind, like depending on where the jet stream's going, that can like shave hours off like long international flights as well. Like
a lot of people came to this con had a really lucky run because coming from UK, 121 knot tailwind.
Yeah,
it's not common. It's usually the other way around.
Yeah, it's usually like 8.5, 9 hours. We did it in like 7.5.
Wow.
Like we shaved at least an hour off.
One of the other things, sort of, as we're talking about clockwork and the way things stack up, is if you can get your flights out early in the morning, there's way less chance that they'll be delayed, because anytime there's a delay somewhere in the system, it perpetuates throughout the day, and so by the time,
domino effect,
like, if you're taking your 4 p.m. flight, then that's great because you don't have to get up at 5 in the morning to get to the airport. But also, if there were any delays earlier in the day, you might be screwed.
Take a red eye.
Yeah.
Yeah, some people like here at O'Hare, all the international flights for cargo come in at around 4 to 6 p.m. And that brings back,
Oh, that makes sense because they're leaving from Europe at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's all 747s. 747s don't turn really quickly, so that's another factor. Like that's why
those big, huge windowless FedEx ones that are like 4 inches.
Right, but they all come in at the same time. People don't also realize that when you travel the Atlantic, it's like a highway. There's 4 lanes. They can only open 4 highways in the sky at any time of day. That changes every 6 hours. So all the planes have to cram into the same network, and that can change things too. So if all the cargo flights are all hitting the same highway, then next thing all the passenger flights are getting up behind.
I find it really funny too when you're flying into Newark, like the planes will just follow like the traffic of the cars on the ground. So it's like you're like technically stuck in New York traffic at that point. Like even in the air, you cannot escape New York traffic. It's very awesome.
New York traffic.
Oh, and Chicago traffic
Oh
too.
my god, just New York.
And
LA.
Actually,
405 is a parking lot. I don't care what anybody says.
that was the thing. We nearly missed our flights because of LA traffic in the morning. Yeah, it was
Uber helicopters becoming a thing there.
Uber helicopter.
Legit, yeah. Because I've now moved into the executive sector, and I will fly clients from Northern California to Van Nuys, and they will Uber a helicopter from Van Nuys to LAX.
How much does that cost?
I've never tried it because I don't make that much money.
Does it just come up on the app or like Uber XL, Uber Share, Uber Helicopter? Does it just
Ubercopter?
There is a perk level for it. I'm not even joking. They're called
crazy.
Raphaels. They land. They're black. They have the Uber logo. If you go to Monaco during the F1 race, they have an Uber program that will fly you to parties on yachts and then fly them back. And they're landing at the Monaco hotel parking lot.
Wow.
You're just like, is this real? So.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's pretty amazing.
I'll be damned.
Yeah.
Found it?
It's a thing.
About $4,000.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hey, if we all chip in, right?
Oh, wait a minute. Through a lower cost of $3,000
Like
per trip or $600 per person.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
Wow. I suppose if you are rich,
Life goal.
that's
Life goal is to be able to afford that. I don't know if I would do it. I just want to be able to
do it at least once.
Yeah.
So you've done it.
I fly private aircraft. It's about $3,700 an hour per person.
Wow.
Yeah, and some of these clients, they're just like.
Yeah, that's how we get to LA from when we go to Japan.
Yeah. My favorite LA traffic story is that I had a friend from Minnesota out visiting, and we were driving around somewhere, and we came down 101 towards central LA, so like Hollywood Freeway, and it was midnight, and we had to slow down because there was traffic. And and he was like, "How do you have traffic slowdowns at midnight here?" And I'm like, is that like...
You haven't seen Birmingham. Oh my gosh, Birmingham in the UK, like it's a constant car park. Like, I think
Is that where Confuzzled is now?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're headed to London or somewhere around there, and it was 2 a.m. and there was still gridlock in Birmingham on the freaking city bypass. It was just crazy.
Yeah.
I think honestly, like of all the cities I've been to in the UK, Birmingham was the worst for traffic. Like it
Oh,
was.
yeah, the mega bus stop is always working. Also, last year, they shut down all the train systems.
Yep.
And then,
Yeah.
so like a couple of my friends just didn't want to go. They weren't going to drive.
Wow.
Those are made by Europe. We're not in Europe anymore. They're shutting all the trains down in the UK. Like we're never going to be able to get out again.
So we're pretty much out of time, but this has been a lot of fun. Thank you guys for coming. Hope you had a good time also. I have one more panel, which is kind of a sobering one. We're doing a memorial for Fred Patton, which I believe is in this room at 3:30. And then, other than that, I'm done.
I want to say thanks to Jake over here as well.
Yeah.
He gave us like a lot of really cool, interesting,
Yeah.
interesting stuff
I didn't mean
as
to-
well. So. No. Like, you should have been up here.
Yeah.
I was just originally, he said, like, we get so much crap because
Yeah.
to people relate aircraft to cars. I
Nope.
get my car next, so like, it's a different physics.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Everyone who flies should hear that side of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's with any customer service or
Yeah.
you don't know what's going on.
Actually, that would be kind of cool for an in-flight movie.
Yeah.
How flights work.
Some people are just
United-
that, some people don't care, no matter what. It's just an
United have that, and they call it Big Metal Bird. Like they've got like this kind of like documentary, like how aircraft and stuff works and how you
Story.
do all the things. And story error.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's really great is some airlines actually play that show Mayday. Like, yeah, they would talk crash investigations. Yeah, so the next day I didn't know this for a bit, and then I'm like, and then people are like,
I've seen
hey,
snakes.
is this actually true? I want to go on this plane. This plane have the same problem? Oh my god.
I've watched snakes on a plane
Oh my god.
I think the worst one I
airplane.
watched was they were playing Titanic on an airplane, so I watched that. Kind of.
He just looked down the water and goes,
Should
ah, it
be
sucks to be you.
Yeah, right.
Airplane.
Airplane.
And Airplane 2.
Oh god.
It's classics.
All
Alright, I guess we're done.
Cool.
Thanks for hanging out, guys.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Silver Gato Man, he bought me a coffee. Silver Gato Man, here is the song for thee. He likes to video all the panels at the cons. You should go and watch them whether they are short or long. Silver Gato Man, you video that's not a jibe. All of you go to his YouTube channel and like and subscribe.